Okay, grounding. So let's talk about specifically grounding an upstairs shack. Now, grounding is one of the most, shall we say, controversial subjects in amateur radio. People get very frustrated about it if you disagree with them. And you ask 10 different people the best way of doing it, you'll get like 15 different answers. So there are certain conventions that, generally speaking, most people agree with, i.e. that you should probably, you should keep your ground wire from the shack outside as short as possible. So ideally, you would have your shack against an outside wall, run a nice thick earth wire through the wall and straight to your ground rod a couple of feet away from the wall. If you're in an upstairs shack like I am, that's not particularly practical or even possible. So I don't proclaim to be an expert on earthing. I absolutely am not. I'm just going to show you what I do with my shack. But before I do that, I just want to show you this on the computer screen here. So this is taken from the Flex radio website. For those of you that don't know, Flex make some really quite nice, fairly high-end SDR radios. Really nice bits of kit, actually. So I would hope that these guys know what they're doing. I don't think this is actually written by them, by Flex, but it's on their website. So I would hope if it's on their website, it's fairly accurate, and they presumably know a lot more than I do. So on their website, you've got all this, there's quite a lot of information there, all sorts of stuff. You've got all about ground loops here and correct ways and wrong ways of grounding stuff. The bit I'm interested in that I want to discuss is way down near the bottom, way down here. Here we go. So this is the RF suppressor ground system. Now I'm not going to go through all of this word for word, but basically it says this grounding system addresses both the electrical ground and RF grounding requirements in ham radio. It's intended for long grounding wires, and it goes on to say it utilises coax line, in this case RG8, to prevent the build-up of high voltage standing wave near the station equipment. It says it's not length sensitive and can be used at any length without concern. It'll keep RF away from the shack. So let's have a look at the diagram down here. Essentially what you've got is a piece of RG8 coax here, and I don't know, it would probably work with RG213. It might even work better with RG213 actually. I'm not sure, I haven't read that deeply into it, but so from your radio equipment you connect to the center of your coax, and you've got a capacitor which goes from the center of the coax to the braid. So what this does is this stops your RF building up on the shield of the coax on your earth run, which would be your normal problem. If your run of earth cable is too long, i.e. a specific fraction of a wavelength of the frequency in which you're operating, which once you get up to the higher frequencies, sort of 10 meters, can be as little as a couple of meters long, your ground wire can and usually will start to radiate, and it'll become part of the antenna system. So what this capacitor does essentially is stop the build-up of RF on your ground wire, on your coax run. And at the outside end, at the ground rod, you short the braid to the center of the coax and then connect it onto your ground rod. So that's essentially the idea. Now, I would say that, I mean, it shows here your antenna going into the radio equipment and not being grounded. And obviously then I guess your antenna is technically grounded to bleed off static through your coax earth wire. I'm not over keen on that idea. I prefer to have my antennas outside, ground my antennas outside at the base of the antenna, and I also ground it as close as I can to the house before the coax for the antenna comes into the shack on this same ground rod that I've got this this grounding wire going to. So that's how I prefer to do it. But so that's the theory. That's what it says on their website on the screen. So let me show you what this looks like in practice. So this isn't going to be the slickest operation. I've got a second camera here, which is plugged into my computer that I'm using to record it. It's not going to be the most steady footage, I'm afraid, but if I switch onto that camera, and got a light on here, so I'll put a bit of light on there so you can see what I'm pointing at. Right, so let's start over here. So this is my coax wire with the capacitor in the end. The capacitor's in behind this yellow and green tape, yellow and green for earth. So that wire goes up, probably not the best arrangement, but it goes up alongside my other coax cables into the ceiling. It goes across the ceiling, and you can't see it, but it goes down outside, down to my earth rod outside. So that's how that arrangement works. And then back here, so you can see it's connected to a bolt there. Underneath this desk, I've tried to do it as discreetly as I can, but underneath this desk there is a fairly thick copper strip. In fact, if I put the camera down under there, so you can see along here is a copper strip. You can see the bolt on the end there that that earth wire connects to. There's several other bolts here spread along there as well. Now, this is where it gets perhaps a little bit controversial, which some people might disagree with. Your shack should really be grounded to your earth system for your mains, if you're using mains. So what I've got here is a fairly thick blue wire here, which is connected to the end of the strip, the copper strip, and that runs underneath the desk and comes out over here, runs down past my computer, and you've got a short run here across the floor onto the copper pipes of the radiator. So let's just talk a little bit about that for a second. It used to be, that's fairly old advice, it used to be that you were recommended to ground your station to your copper water pipes, because the water pipes ran through the whole house and then underground, and it acted as a good ground. Now, a lot of modern houses are built with plastic radiator pipes, or even if you have got copper, the water pipes coming from the main supply on the street into the house, they can still be PVC, so technically not grounded. In this particular house, I have got copper pipes. I'm not sure whether the pipes leading out into the street are plastic or copper, but it is bonded extremely well to the mains earth supply, and I found that connecting to my radiator down there actually reduced my noise by roughly about half an S point. So for me, it was worth doing. There'll be some people who will argue that and say it's not good practice. Your mileage might vary. For me, it worked. So, okay, let's go back onto this camera again. And so hopefully these bolts through the desk will make a little bit more sense now, because they're going through the copper strip. Now, a lot of people would get a strip or get a plate of metal to cover the whole desk and put all of their equipment on the desk, which is another recommendation. I haven't done that. But then you can see here I've got my tuner, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but if I lift it up, See, I've got a really short braided strap here, bonding strap, and there's a bolt there where my finger is. So the tuner is bonded, and my 857 here, that's bonded to the desk as well. The 857 doesn't actually have a lug on the back for the earth, so in fact you can see the strap slightly better on this than you can the tuner. So I've put it on the side where the bracket would go if you're mounting this mobile in the car, and that gives you a good earth. So nice short bonding strap. Again, another bolt through there. Now most people will agree that you should bond your power supplies as well. I haven't done that yet. I may run a strap up here and put another short strip underneath here to bond the power supplies, but arguably your power supply is bonded to the case of your radio via the 0 volt line, via the earth anyway. Probably not good practice. It's also bonded to the mains supply because your case of your power supply is connected via your 3-pin, which includes an earth to the mains. I have heard some rather worrying suggestions from people who should know better, suggesting that you break that connection to isolate your 12 volt from your mains. Do not do that, please. The manufacturers put that in there for a reason. It's there as a safety feature. It's designed so that if you get a short circuit and the case of your power supply or your radio goes live, then it's got somewhere for the current to go. It's there to prevent you getting a shock. It's there as a safety device. I know some people who, like I say, really should know better, advocate breaking that connection. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's there for safety. You don't want to break that connection. And then here I'd normally have a tablet in there. There's another earth connection here. Most people would say your computers and everything you use should be earthed as well. Now I haven't quite got that far yet. This shack is in the middle of having a bit of a turnaround, and I've got another radio which I've just bought. In fact, if you can see down there, this big box, it literally arrived today. I haven't even opened it yet. So, in fact, I'm not even going to tell you what radio I bought. If you've seen my previous videos, you might have a pretty good guess, but I'm going to let you guess in the comments what radio you think I've bought to replace the 857 here. So that will be a later video, and then when I get that fitted, I will obviously start doing a bit more with the bonding, with the connections. Maybe, like I say, they recommend you should bond your computer or anything plugged into the mains to your single earth, your earth strip along the back of the desk. So anyway, that's just a brief overview. That's what I do with my grounding system, which I believe to be safe. Like I say, grounding is one of those subjects where everyone has their own ideas. And as I said earlier, you ask 10 people, you get 15 different suggestions. So this is what I do. It's what I believe to be safe. And by the way, when I properly bonded all the equipment together with this copper strip and to the radiator and down to the earth rod outside, that reduced my noise by about an S point. If you saw my previous videos, I used to have about an S9, S9 plus noise. And by moving the router for the internet, that I managed to get that down about an S point. And by doing this with the earthing, I'd managed to knock another S point off my noise level. I'm down to, it varies between about an S6 and S7 noise I get now, which is still quite high, but we are in a residential area. But that's significantly better than the S9, S9 Plus than I had. So this is well worth doing. But like I say, I'm not an expert on this. I don't profess to be. I'm just showing you what I've done, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who will disagree with me. A bit of reading for you that might be worth doing is, and this is what I've been reading, Grounding and Bonding for the Radio Amateur. It's published by the ARRL. Now, this is targeted towards the American market, and like I say, standards and the way things are done varies very slightly in different parts of the world. So that it's still fairly relevant for us here in the UK and around the rest of the world. You get some good ideas in there. It doesn't focus too much on the upstairs shack, so you won't see much of this in there, but it's still a really good read. Now, I believe I saw somewhere they're updating that, filling in some of the gaps, which I think will cover more of the upstairs shack. I think I saw somewhere they're releasing an updated version of that. I think it was around about, I think they said towards the end of November, sometime in December, which as I film this, we're early to mid-November. So probably sometime later this month or next month is when it's due to be released. I believe. I haven't actually checked that. I could be wrong, but I believe that's that it will be updated in the near future. So there you go. Just a few ideas for you. That's how I do it. Any comments or suggestions? Like I say, people get a little bit animated about the whole grounding station. If you disagree with them or do something that they don't approve of, then it's seen as heresy and it gets very animated. So keep it polite. If you've got any suggestions or any other ideas you think would help people, then down in the comments below.